Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 87 with Joe Costable. I had a great conversation with Joe. We talked about so many things, including his journey niching down into mixing. We talked about his approach to mixing, including communication with artists, what he expects from them, and what he tries to deliver. We also talked about how he does a lot of DIY stuff, like treating his room. And we actually had the most elaborate sauce segment that's ever happened on Secret Sonics, where he actually broke down a song from the Pro Tools session, going out, and we were able to really see some of the fine details that went into the mix. So I think you're going to love it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Joe Costable here on Secret Sonics. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Joe Costable. Joe is a multi-platinum award-winning recording and mixing engineer based out of New York. Joe primarily mixes alternative, pop, and rock genres. He is a member of the Audio Engineering Society and a voting member of the Recording Academy. Notable credits include American Authors, Good Charlotte, Rob Thomas, Bayside, and Young Rising Stars. I actually first came upon Joe on the Working Class Audio podcast a few years back, and I've been following him on social media, and I decided to reach out, and he's been gracious enough to join us on the show. So without further ado, welcome to Secret Sonics, Joe.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell the audience a bit about yourself. Who are you? When did music begin, and how did that kind of evolve into production?
That's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah, well, you can tell your life story, Don't have to take hours on it.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, obviously I started playing instruments when I was younger, maybe around like 12, 13, played trumpet in high school, and then, eventually evolved into rock bands. And then I just became the guy that would record our little bands, and it just kind of caught the bug and kept going from there. And then after high school, I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences and just, got my career started in Houston, Texas, working on hip-hop records with a bunch of guys I didn't even really know who they were at the time. And they turned out to be pretty big hip-hop artists, and that's what got the ball rolling. Moved back to New York, worked at Island Def Jam for a little bit in the A&R department. And then after that, got back in the studio and just been recording. And now I mainly mix.
Nice. Was there like a moment in that, journey where you're like, oh my God, this is actually happening? You know what?
Not really, because I have to say the whole time it feels like it's barely happening. Like I feel like I'm just I'm just doing enough to keep it going, and then every once in a while I might pick my head up and be like, oh wow, that was cool, But looking ahead, it's like I don't know if I can keep doing this, but
yeah,
it keeps going. So
yeah, we just keep doing it, so it keeps happening.
There's nothing else to really do. At least for me,
yeah.
This is it.
That's so interesting. I feel like also especially during these crazy Corona times, it's like, what's going to be around in the next little bit?
Especially now, I mean, I just this room that I'm in now, I just got in June, which is right in the middle of when everything was shut down here in New York. So it was like I had lost the spot I was at because of everything being shut down, and the studio owner's wife needed to work from home, so she needed my room as an office. So I got the boot and then went and found this space, which was kind of what I've been looking for a long time. And it just literally walked into it, and it was, it's kind of a no-brainer. So took this spot in June, and it was pretty difficult getting it together because nothing was shipping, nothing was being delivered, and you couldn't go in store and get just going to Home Depot was a project just to get, screws to build this room. So
right. Yeah.
it felt like, it felt like more of an uphill battle, but everything's kind of getting somewhat normal, I guess, on this side. And it's
like a new normal.
It's weird. It's not how it was, but I mean, I'm staying busy, and I don't know if it's because everybody's home making songs right now, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not really questioning it. It's just great to keep rolling with it. But that was probably, certainly a period of uncertainty, and it worked out.
So it sounds like because you've kind of already niched into mixing, I guess you had better job security as a mixing engineer.
Yeah, I'm remote anyway. You know what I mean? Nobody really comes in. A lot of my clients are West Coast anyway, so they're not, You know, they're not sitting behind me all day long. And now I've got, you know, a pretty good system where I can do a mix and stream it to them at the end of the day, and they can hop on and listen to it, and we can do some tweaks live if they want. You know, nice. Zoom is helpful, so we do some Zoom sessions, and yeah, it's been working out. It's just a new way of working, but I like it, you know?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, niching down into mixing? What made you choose to, you know, stick with just mixing and maybe kind of forget about the other stuff for a while?
I always wanted to mix. It was just growing up listening to records and seeing that there was someone in charge of actually assembling all those parts and making it sound the way it did. I just thought it was really interesting to me. Besides the recording. So I've always mixed what I was recording, and obviously you have to be a pretty decent recording engineer to really be able to mix anything, I think. So, I don't even know how long I've been doing this, maybe 15 years or something, but you know, the first 10 of that was heavily just recording and mixing what I could get on the side. And then maybe 5-6 years ago, it just broke out to really mixing full time because I was getting a lot more of that work. And I liked it more. You know, that was always the end goal for me, was to be mixing and getting that work. And I don't know, it's just kind of ended up doing this.
Do you do any recording or any production in addition to mixing at this point?
Not really. If I record something once a month, it's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Like I have friends that will do like some pet projects, but yeah, really just my work is mixing. And it's not always audio. Like I do some film work too. So, but it's mostly music.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think I kind of also thought like I wanted to kind of niche into mixing, and I think I still kind of do. But I realize that if I'm only mixing, I feel like it kind of turns into a day job. And you need I need like a little bit of on the side, like a bit of production at least, or you know, doing something else that's like a little bit more. Not that mixing isn't creative, but just something that's a little bit different that kind of like sparks a little bit maybe more left brain than mixing does.
Yeah. Are you more of a musician?
I am a musician.
So you're mainly a musician, so you need that outlet. I guess you're always going to have to write a song and record a song, right? So I could understand.
Maybe it's been a while, but I love to call myself out on the air. But yeah, totally.
Well, see, now you got to.
I should.
Yeah, get after it.
Yeah. So, but I guess the mix. You love the mixing, so
I do. I mean, that's my creative outlet. I think. Yeah, just hearing a rough mix and just. To me, it's always immediate. If I hear a rough mix, it goes somewhere else in my head, and that's what I try to get out of it. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. So is that the first thing you do when a client sends you a mix? Is like just check out the rough mix and see?
Yeah, I always listen
about?
To the rough. Usually only once, maybe twice. I really don't like to get too roped into it. They're already usually pretty roped into it.
Yeah. So right, totally.
So I try to just get a feel for the song. And first, I mean, you got to know if it's something you can handle, you know, if it's something that I feel like is in my wheelhouse or not. And usually whoever is coming to me, they've heard what I've done, and it's usually a good fit. But yeah, just listening to that and just getting the ideas, and usually it'll stick in my head, and then it might just be the hook that gets stuck in my head or part of the verse that gets stuck in my head. And then it's always there. I'm coming up with ideas, and then when I get in front of it and pull it up on the desk, then I can start shaping it into wherever it wants to go. But it's usually the song guiding. It's not me really, you know, you can't really do, you can and you can't. Like the song is going to be what it's going to be. And, you know, if you have to start reinventing the wheel on the tracks, you're probably in the wrong direction, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. With mixing, I totally vibe with what you said about the song directs it. Also, like I just got Mixerman's new edition of Zen and the Art of Mixing. I don't know if you read that book.
No.
But that book was like a game changer for me. Like when I first got into audio, like 10 years ago, or like 11 years ago, or something. And so I was just like rereading it just for shits and giggles. And I think he changed some stuff. And I remember, and I read it, and I remember that he also the previous time I read it, it's like he talks about how just the song will guide you at the end of the day, right? And it's like it's so important.
It should. I mean, a good song will almost mix itself, you know? I think.
Yes.
I mean, but that's also my approach. It's pretty hands off. Like, if I were to show you a session, you know, there's like one, maybe two plugins on every track, you know? Most of it is balance with the faders, and then, you know, the rest of it is just a little bit of shaping, but nothing's really too drastic.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like you do have kind of a trademark sound. If I had to say so myself, like I feel like your drums are always super present and focused, and like I don't know, there's something
that's something
from what I
that,
heard.
Yeah, that's it's the way I like hearing music, and I don't really know where that comes from, but you're not the first person that said that. I mean, and it's just the way I like hearing it, I guess. I don't really like hearing compression, or I never felt like I was good at it. I feel like every time I put a compressor on something, I just kill it. So I don't know, I guess. So I've come up with ways of just fitting things in with EQ more than compression. And the compressors to me are pushing things, further back in the mix versus up front. But
wow,
everything else, I kind of do a lot with EQ shaping wise. I don't know. It's just like that. Maybe it's just the New Yorker in me. Everything's a little rough around the edges and not too polished. But being a musician, I don't play anymore, or I haven't in over 10 years. I should, right? But
right,
you kind of fall out of it.
I know, totally. Yeah,
I
hear that.
Like growing up, I would listen to records, and I played bass. That was my main instrument.
Hey, represent.
Oh, nice. So I would just put on a record and just learn every song, start to finish. And I think having that kind of early approach to music it translates in my mixes, in that not everything needs to be super clear, but if you want to listen to what the guitarist is playing, you can tune into that and be able to hear what he's playing. If you want to know what the bass player is playing, you can tune into that. So I have that kind of in the back of my mind. Like, if I were sitting home listening to this, can I understand what they're doing? And then that itself leads to just leaving a lot of the transients in and leaving things dynamic and not overly polishing everything. And also, it's just the New York aggression, I think, comes out a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I feel like those mixes sounded really loud. I obviously wasn't looking at the transients in an analyzer or anything, but they sounded like loud mixes, like very, very full. And so I'm like, it's like almost surprising that you're not using compression to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it makes things sound smaller to me. It really does. And I think if you try,
that is what compression does. I mean,
right.
To some degree.
I mean, if you want something to sound further away from you in a mix, you would compress it more. So to me, throwing compression on the drums is like, I'll let the bus compressor do that on the whole mix. Before I do put compression on the drum kit, but
not on the individual channels.
Not really. The snare drum will usually get a little bit of compression, but again, I don't like the way it changes the snares. And because a lot of times with pop and alternative, it's a programmed sample, and so that is the sound. You don't need to really shape that like you would an acoustic drum, right? So you can really change the shape of a drum sample, and they don't want it to sound like that. They want it to sound like the sample they chose. So part of it is that too. It'll do too much if you're not careful with it.
So when you are doing compression, I'm assuming you're using relatively slow attack times, kind of stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah, usually. Well, I don't know. I'll say that, but then I can probably show you half of these tracks that have a compressor on them, and it's super fast and super quick release, and because then it's there just to keep it from clipping anything. It's almost like I have to put a compressor on it just at some point, but I try not to, and when I do, I don't think it's not what's leading to the sound.
The compression, it's just like a technicality that
I have to use it, and I have a mix up now that I'm looking at, and it's mostly 1176s. So
you do have a go-to compressor at least.
Yeah, I have a go-to compressor and a go-to frequency, so maybe that's why things are a little edgy.
What's the frequency?
5K, I think. 3K, 5K.
Oh, so you're pushing 3.5K. That's like that makes things loud, right? That's like the loudness.
I think so. Yeah.
Curve, especially like in mastering and stuff.
Yeah, and then and then usually on the mix bus, I'll usually end up pulling out a little bit like 300. So it really gives it that shift, and you still got the bottom end, and everybody's happy. But what's funny is sometimes it sounds a little too bright, but then you listen to the rough mix, and it's like you guys had this way brighter than I did, but for some reason now it sounds bright because we're just cleaning everything up. But I don't really worry too much about that. They already have their mix. Let me do mine.
It's interesting how like brightness is so relative. Like that stuff
so
is
relevant.
just depends what you listened to before. Also, it's like like you get into
really
a zone
does,
of like, this sounds balanced now because I'm used to it, and then you hear something else like, oh my god, that's so bright, but that would sound totally normal to you.
Yeah.
Like our ears are